Toby, we've been a fan of yours forever, and we've always thought of you as an ambassador, and whether that be from one culture to another, or one musical genre to another, or from the King of God to, the rest of the world, and we've greatly admired you. So I know this is a calling of yours to be. Now, we live in a world now where Eminem is accepted by multiracial audiences, but your work in hip-hop, it's a lot of that, and a lot of that acceptance by the world, and definitely by the church. Now, I want to know, when you first set out to do hip-hop with DC Talk, did you feel like a fish out of water, or did you think, oh, people aren't going to want to hear this white dude doing this kind of music? What was your image of that time?
Well, when I first started, I just loved hip-hop. So, I was the guy in the basement of my parents' house with, 2 turntables and spinning 12-inch wax and making rhymes and writing raps and making my own little cassette tapes. So I was just that dude. I mean, I loved it. And I didn't even think of it that way. I grew up, in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. And, my friends and I were into hip-hop. We loved Run DMC. We loved Houdini. We loved LL Cool J. We loved those groups. So I think I was a bit sort of in a bubble. In other words, maybe if I lived in West Virginia or North Dakota, it might have been strange that I was a white boy into hip-hop. But for us, we were all into it. And I was in schools where it was very, very mixed racially and culturally. So I didn't sort of take any of it back. I know as I started to progress and I signed a record deal and I sort of got under the critical eye a little, I definitely have sort of, there's been some shots taken just because I was white. Definitely some times where I've sort of stepped away slightly from it or began to think of other, not sort of walked away completely, but begin to think of this entire thing as like, what do I have in my arsenal of vocals that I can serve up besides just rap? I mean, I can sing, I can sort of talk, sing, I can scream, So then I started to think, well, I'm going to do whatever vocal best supports the message of the song the art that I'm creating.
And in you saying that, I want to know, when did this transition take place between the musical genre of hip-hop into rock and then into other genres? When did that arise for you and transition successfully?
Well, I mean, I became friends with Michael and Kevin, and we formed the group DC Talk. They were into different styles of music. I actually, because I was, the primary songwriter, I guess, and sort of the co-producer of it all, I also wanted to, sort of serve them up some things that they loved. So they definitely stretched me. But I just grew up, liking the Police and Bob Marley. I mean, it's like the list goes on as far as my influences. I mean, U2. I mean, it's like, so I grew up into rock and roll, into hip hop, and it was sort of this step in and out of those things very naturally. I mean, maybe sometimes you end up that guy that that maybe you call an ambassador. That's a very nice way to put it. Sometimes you end up that guy that people want you to just be one thing, but when you're not, it frustrates some people. But that's just
people the wrong way. Yeah.
Right. It's just who I am, though. I mean, it really is. Like, if you step to my CD collection, you will see it's from rock and roll to reggae to hip hop to the blues. I mean, you're going to see it all, and those are the things that have influenced me my entire life.
Okay. Now, we interviewed Michael Tate a few months ago, and we had jokes about the group being the Two Honks and Negro. And I don't know, did you guys know that this was going to be a social commentary on racism? Your union, did you know that? When did it become apparent that you guys just couldn't stay silent about this stuff because you were a group that made commentary on it just by you being you?
For me, it was one specific scenario. It was like I can name you the time and place, and it was just growing up in a diverse atmosphere, growing up where really all people were sort of accepted to some degree, not completely probably, but I look back at my class pictures from 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and very mixed, Asian, African American, Latino, it was in Caucasian. It was just sort of like this. So I just kind of grew up thinking that was normal. And then we began sort of flying around as DC Talk and doing shows. And I started recognizing that the crowds didn't look that way. And I just remember one time I was in a city, and we flew in, and Michael and I just remember were laughing the entire flight. Like we were just having a great time. And I stood up when the plane landed, and of course the bell went off. I stood up to get my bag, and Michael had gone down the aisle ahead of me, and I was like digging around up in the overhead thing for my bag, and a guy just taps me on the shoulder. I turn around, and he just looked at me and he said, "Nigger lover," and I just it absolutely boggled my mind. First of all, so then you begin to open your eyes to the other side. You're just kind of walking through life with these glasses on like everything's great, rose-tinted glasses or whatever, and then you realize, you start noticing that people did look at us funny because we rolled deep like that as far as our friendships across racial boundaries, I guess, that people considered that we're up. And I think that it hit me, and I began to look at it, we have to spread this. We have to let people know that we are more beautiful together than separated. And God intended us to live that way, together.
Absolutely. And I know that's when you began the whole foundation. And the work was groundbreaking for us as a people, just like as spectators, as fans. We were looking at you and we were like, my God, do they know what they're doing? I mean, it's something that shook all of us because it was that kind of social commentary, and specifically to church audiences, that was huge for us.